Welcome to Origin Stories. I'm RD.
I'm Parrott.
We're telling stories behind the digital art revolution
Each week we interview top artists.
and live stream with the community.
Let's go. Today is tomorrow's origin story.
Pete Mohrbacher, welcome to Origin Stories.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Roger.
Of course. You were one of the first artists that I fell in love with in the NFT space. And I said this off air, and I'm going to say that now, and I'm racking my brain for it. I think I may have collected more of your artworks than any other artist in the entire space.
Thank you. I'm really glad that you like my work. I don't know how to receive compliments. So yeah, that's a wild statistic. That's a huge honor. I know you're deep into this crypto thing. So the fact that you're so invested in my work it's a huge honor for me.
Well, let's shift past compliment stage. Let's get right to the good stuff.
All right.
The big question is this: what is your origin story?
Oh my God. Artistically, I actually have like a very definitive moment. I was 16 years old. I woke up one morning. I'd been watching, at this point in my life, I was watching a lot of anime, and I really wanted to draw. I knew we had a bunch of art materials around the house somewhere. And everybody I know says they started, who's an artist, say they've been drawing forever. I've been drawing since I could pick up a pencil. And I mean, I guess I did the same amount of art as any other kid, but it was just like, there's this one day when I was 16, I woke up, I wanted to draw. I spent all day trying to figure out, how do I get the thing on the page the way that it's in my head? And I started digging around on the internet, trying to find art that spoke to me, trying to find instruction on how to draw. I started trying to get books on it. And it was like every single day from that point on, it was a major part of my life that I was invested in. And, teenage years are some pretty fraught years. And so like for me, art ended up being like a huge part of my life during that time, because it was like my window into the world of other people. I've always had terrible time with social skills and relating to people. And all of a sudden, as soon as I started this like pursuit, then there was this connection that I was able to it was like this umbilical cable. I was able to like actually exchange feelings and ideas with other people in a way that felt like it was working. And so it's just like over the formative years of my life, it's ended up just being it's not like a career or a business plan, but just like a major aspect of my life and my identity was being able to like draw and communicate with people through drawing.
Can you point to a work in your teenage years? So you have this moment at 16 years old. It's interesting. These stories go sometimes both ways. Sometimes it just kind of happened, and then later look back, and it seems in your case a bit more of a light switch moment at 16.
Yeah, it was just eyes snap open in the morning, and I'm just like, I need to do art. And it just like didn't go away for over 20 years.
That's amazing. So point to a work in your teenage years. You have this light switch moment. What is one that you're proud of? You have whether it's that you learned something new and you applied it, and you looked at something you created and you said, wow, I really did something here.
There was a couple of things like right before I got to college where I was messing around with Photoshop. I started on Photoshop around Photoshop version 4, like back when they even numbered them, I guess. It like really early stuff. And I just remember I had just like this portrait of a face that I had painted that looked kind of like watercolors. And every time I showed it to anyone, they would have this like flabbergasted expression. It would be like, you painted this? Like you made this? Like I had never had anything in my life have this kind of reaction. It was like just people seemed overwhelmed by the idea that like anyone was able to make art at all. And I was able to do this with, like a mouse and Photoshop. And this is like really ancient stuff. I don't think it's on the internet anymore. If you had asked me, I could have probably pulled out some old Photoshop files and showed you some really, really old work. I've got I think an interview with my friend Tim Vaughn where we go through and do that. But yeah, it's just like, it's actually not that different from what I do now, where it's just doing figurative work, doing portraits of fantasy characters and stuff. It was just I don't know. My brain's totally fried right now. This has been a really long week. What do you want to know again?
Let's go to the next step then. So let's go. So
Yeah.
that was a point of pride, right? That was something that you created that someone else looked at and had a very clear, they had a moment, right? On your behalf, on the behalf of your art.
It wasn't even just like a matter of pride. It was like, for somebody who's always had trouble just communicating with people in normal ways, the fact that I felt like I was being seen was meaningful beyond just being like, oh, I like this. It was like, it felt like I was actually having like real human connection in a way that like had never really happened prior to making art. So just, I'd always felt kind of invisible and distant and apart from other people, especially like in school, for my entire life. And all of a sudden people were, by looking at the page, they were looking at me. And that like, that, you know, it transcends like feeling cool or being proud or, you know, more superficial emotions. It was like a real connection.
In a new language at your disposal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's interesting. So that language, right, that you then are forming and evolving, when does that language translate to actually selling a work of art?
Oh, really quickly. This is actually something that's important to me because it's like, I had around the same time, I'm really into anime, right? And so all my high school friends and I were into anime. So we go to the local anime convention and they have these artist alley tables and you can pay $10 to sit down at a table and show off your drawings. And this is like, nowadays, these things are, you know, you're signing up 9 months in advance. There's like lotteries to try to get in. You know, in some cases, I'm spending thousands of dollars for a table to show at a convention. But it's like early days when no one gave a shit. You can swear on this podcast, right?
You can do it. Anything you want.
And it, like I gave the man $10 and I sat down with a folder full of lined notebook paper and some drawings. And, you know, over the course of, you know, between the times when I was going hanging out with my friends, I was able to be there and I must have probably made $20 over the course of the weekend, which was a lot of money for me at that time. And I just kept showing up every year, just planning. This is going to be a part of my year when I go to ASEN is I'm going to go and bring my latest work and sit down at the table and I'll make a couple of dollars. And so I have been standing next to my work, selling it in person continuously, other than 2020 for like, since around 2001.
That's amazing.
And when all the other things started to build in my career, I kept doing this on the side. It was like an essential part of my artistic identity was making my work available for sale directly to people and having a sort of face-to-face relationship with them, which isn't exactly the way, you know, fine artists are born. And, you know, you're supposed to like have mystique and have some identity and the artist is off in their atelier and there's, you know, some representative is going around shopping the work around to important people. You know, I'm standing here in a room full of teenagers, you know, hucking my work face to face over a folding table. And I don't know, but that's like what I value. Like that's the way I see artistic connection happening just because of my history. And so it's something that I've done literally forever. For as long as I've been an artist, that's been a core part of it. It's like how the art gets seen. That's how the art gets purchased most of the time.
Isn't that perfection though? That's decentralized art. You know, isn't that what this movement is all about? And you were doing that, you know, in the traditional art world in 2001, showing up year over year. And now you're here. I feel like you're so well suited. Your mindset, your approach, your community approach is so well suited to what's going on today.
It's very weird. I've, you know, I hear about all these stories of like, oh, all the guys from, you know, all the richest people in the world, they're all born within like a 2-year gap. You know, they all went to school in Silicon Valley, you know, at the right time. They were just in the right time, in the right place. I'm wondering if I have just happen to have the perfect history for this moment, because so much of like my past interests and the things that I value and the things that I've invested in, you know, with no real expectation of upside, have suddenly become valued sort of all at once. And so I'm feeling very, very lucky to have been standing at like right next to a shooting star that's fallen and hit the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that investment, right? That investment in self, that investment of your time, that investment in your art. It's incredible that it is in this moment, like you said, all of a sudden accelerating and paying off in rapid fashion in a whole different space, you know, and obviously it's, I mean, we're going to go back to your history in just a second. It's paid off in a lot of other ways as well. But with this space specifically in mind, it brings me back actually a recent origin story. Justin Maller had said, you know, time invested is an investment, or some paraphrasing, something along those lines. And that just hit me when you said what you said here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's more I want to go into on that, but we'd be skipping ahead. I'm curious what question you have next.
Yeah, so I want to go. So let's go back. So you have this light bulb moment at 16. You start developing your art. Photoshop 4, right? And then
Photoshop 5, then Photoshop 6, and then Photoshop 7. They added a brush panel where you had more than 2 choices on how to modify your brush.
Did that blow your mind at the time?
No, I found it frustrating because I figured out how to paint back in the day, the brush panel had 2 checkboxes in it. It was size flow and opacity flow were the only things you could adjust. You could put both of them on if you're feeling saucy. And so I was like, I think most people seem to be doing opacity, but I feel like I can get the best results out of the size brush. And that was like what we had. And so I just, with a round brush that had, you know, size intensity, modulated by the pen pressure, I like figured out how to do most of what I do with that. And then they gave me a bunch of tools, and I was already, you know, in early college, a curmudgeon. I was like, nobody needs all that fancy stuff. And so I kind of maintained that throughout my career. Just you know, I keep my tool set pretty small.
I mean, from my perspective, great decision. I mean, your work is so distinctive. It's so distinct. So whatever choices you made all the way back then, in my opinion, have wildly paid off.
Yeah, people have traditional painters have often said that they recognize my painting as being like painting in a way that they don't see in other digital artists, and that's because I do everything by hand. Well, I mean, not everything. That there's all sorts of extra tools in Photoshop I've integrated into my process, but you know, the marks that I make are largely just placed by hand, one by one, the same way that a traditional painter works. And so the results end up with a similar aesthetic because, you know, I leave these tool marks in because I love the way that paintings look. And I like the process of laying in marks one by one by hand and having that control over this, you know, this sort of microscape of tiny little brush strokes. And I'm so thankful that people like the way that stuff looks, that they value that in my work, because that's the way I want to make this stuff. Yeah. You know, that's like, if I've seen, I see so many contemporaries of mine that have these workarounds that are able to do the things I do faster and easier. And I see them do it. And I just like, what's the point? Like so much of art for me is the time that I spend building it and the time that I spend poking around on the canvas, you know, making all these little marks. So like, yeah, the process of it, the process is everything. And so I don't want to do anything that would skip that process. If anything, I've only made the process longer over time because I've gotten pickier about like how big I work and how detailed I get and the kinds of texture I want to see when I go in really, really close on it. And so the scope of my work, even though the figures are basically, you know, I do these single figure pieces primarily, like the level of detail on the work far beyond what people see on the web resolution version has gone way, way up over the course of the last 10 years.
So going back, you do the yearly, you're making you're putting in the time, you're making the $20, which is a big deal at the time.
Yeah. And then it was $100. I would show up every weekend. I show up, it's $100. It's awesome.
That's amazing. So where's the next milestone there? Where's the next moment that maybe things evolve a step further? It becomes a little bit more serious in your mind as to say, okay, I'm taking a very significant step with my art here.
One of the biggest moments for me was probably in college. It was so weird in college because I went to a really bad college that they didn't really have a program for what I wanted to do. I was in a game arts program, so I wanted to get into video games. And so they gave me this smattering of all this different technology, but I knew I was most interested in and best at painting. And they didn't have any hardware. They didn't have any tablets in the school until my senior year. And nobody was doing instruction on digital painting. So it was all happening on the web community. And I was building a bit of a reputation on places like CG Hub, CG Talk, you know, getting up on the top row with digital paintings and stuff during that time. And like the big milestone is I had this piece where I just decided one day, I had been messing around with this stuff a lot. I was going to just see what would happen if I gave myself an unbound amount of time to just work on a piece. Like if I were to draw cloth, if I were to paint in every stitch, if I were to do like a concrete texture, if I were to just manually paint in every little crack, what would happen? Like, can I get as good as these guys who I think are, can I do as well as the people who I see as being great on the internet if I do that? And the first piece came out, I was really happy with. I think I probably spent about 40 or 50 hours on it, just doing it with a small round brush. And then I got a decent amount of attention for it. And then the next painting I did, I don't know what happened, but it was one of those experiences. And I think every artist has this where they're like, I did a piece that was way above where I was at, where I knew that I was making good choices, but I didn't understand those choices. And I was happy with what was happening, but it also felt really delicate. Like if I'd made the wrong choice next, I was going to destroy the file. Like the whole thing was going to come apart. And then I was in the end, I was like really happy with this piece. It was just a picture of a guy with a crow on his shoulder. And what I didn't realize at the time was that was going to like get published in art books, and it was going to push people to my websites, and it was going to end up like getting me, like establishing me as somebody who other artists were watching, that I was like a known name inside the community because I did something that people just saw and they just clicked with. And so I had this painting, Crow in Winter, that was like still kind of holds up. And it was like really just like, I think the second digital painting that I think I would call finished. And it was weird because it was just like, it wasn't a matter of experience. It was just a matter of mindset, just being dedicated to spending the time with the work and to be serious about what was there on the canvas. And that was enough to make something that was life-changing as far as like making an impact to my art career. And it was just made by backwards engineering the things that I love to see on the internet. It wasn't, I wasn't like really educated in how to do it. It was like almost like a piece of outsider art. And so, you know, from that point, that built a foundation for me to do a lot of other stuff.
Did you find that, so you said you created that work.
I should mint that. I should mint that piece.
I mean, personally, like wearing the collector hat here, I am really, really fond of when artists with such a strong story and rich history go back and pull, you know, either the first or a very early meaningful work of art in the process. I am a huge fan of telling that story and then potentially, if comfortable, offering that out, getting that on a platform somewhere.
Yeah, it's one of my, I have a handful of meaningful pieces that are outside the Angelarium collection. That would be one of them. But yeah, aside from me telling this, like, I don't know how many people even know that would be like, it's a significant piece of work in my history. My icon that people see around, they say it looks like me. It's actually not me. It was kind of a remake of that I had done as a study of. So it's that same character again. That was this beginning point for my art career. And so I use that. That's the reason I have that as my like user icon on everywhere right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that your Twitter avatar?
The Twitter avatar is an updated version of that I had done probably about 4 or 5 years ago at this point. But yeah, it's the same figure. Yeah.
So your work takes a leap forward, right? You said you kind of performed a level above what you had done before. Now, is that consistent? Is that a permanent step up? Do you feel like you perform at a level above and it regresses a little bit, and it's kind of that
Yeah,
interplay?
it regresses a little bit, but it's weird. It's sort of like how when they describe in if you've ever read any kind of like Zen literature, it's always like, and then the master did this, and then the student became enlightened. Like as though like they just have this, they do this, they demonstrate this one act, like lift a finger, and then the student is enlightened, and then they're just forever changed. It really was kind of like that, where I found this one thought pattern, and when I thought that way, I was able to do something that was previously impossible, and I had access to it again in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've actually gotten really into teaching over the years to try to help people have that moment for themselves, because it's really satisfying to watch someone go through that transformation.
It's an amazing moment. And
Yeah.
in athletics, like taking the leap, the enlightenment in Zen and athletics, taking the leap. It's that advancement in the moment.
But yeah, it wasn't like I was producing better work from that point forwards all the time, but I feel like I had access to that mode of thinking from that point forwards. And so I was having varying degrees of success from that point on, where again, works were getting published inside, publications like Expose. I was getting featured on like the top row on websites that I was on. I was growing following on DeviantArt, because that was like the big place where people consumed art on the internet at the time when I was making it, was how big can you get your DeviantArt following? And so, I was making these pieces specifically. It was like, even though I was doing the yearly convention thing, these pieces were all being made just to try to release to people to see how many people wanted to look at it. It was just for the connection with other people, just to try to like get it in front of as many eyeballs as possible, because that's what my personal mission was. There was no business involved in it at all.
You took the words out of my mouth. That was my next question, which was what is your goal at that time? What is your thought process at that time with your art?
I thought that if I was accomplished enough as an artist, I could get into the video game industry. That was like the rough plan of like, what am I going to do next after college? But the real plan was just to get as many followers as possible on proto social media.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, the feeling of having my work be seen and to feel like I'm being seen was the main driver. Mm-hmm. I wanted my work to be better so that people had better experiences with it. I wanted more people to be seeing it and to be responding to it positively. It was really just about the engagement with an audience. And that, like, I mean, when you're in college, I was living with my parents. I didn't really have concerns for how am I going to get food or money or anything like that. It never really clicked that this was a future in that sense. Really was just about, what do other people think of this? And can I make them feel bigger things? Can I affect them more with my work by doing this a step better than I'm doing right now?
You were purely building that community. You were working on it from the earliest days. So your name, I don't know how you feel about this. Your name, I think, will forever be linked to Magic the Gathering, right? It was
it's a mixed bag. I've pride in a lot of the stuff I've done for that, for sure.
But I know immediately looking at your artwork, I recognize it. I was never huge into playing Magic the Gathering. I have some. I wasn't so deep there, but I had a huge appreciation for the art. I always saw the artwork as distinctive. And so that was the hit Roger over the head moment, seeing your artwork in NFT form and then drawing that line and connection back to Magic the Gathering. Yeah, was a pretty incredible moment. So yeah, go into that. How do you feel about it?
Well,
how did that begin?
It skips a little bit of a step to get into it, because the thing I find to be really important about the place Magic has in my career is to place it chronologically. Because after I had that success with Crow and Winter and I started to build a portfolio, but before I had a career, I created Angelarium during my very last semester of college. Like, before I had any real plans for what I was going to do with it, I discovered this series just totally by accident, just finding that it was really easy for me to just come up with an idea for an angel that represented a thing. And these things just started flowing out of me. And like I did like 12 of them over the course of a 12-week class, and delivered the first collection of 12, like before I was even out of school. And I knew that it was like a really exciting thing, but I had no idea that it was going to be like the next like 20 years or 30 years of my life. And then like my work with Angelarium was like the central thing that came with me out of college and onto all of my my online presence, and then into places like Gen Con, where I was selling the work live in person again, and where I met Jeremy Jarvis, who was the art director of Magic the Gathering at the time. And him seeing my Angelarium pieces was what got me hired on Magic. Like Angelarium preceded my Magic the Gathering work by a lot, and was a core part of my identity before Magic. And then, so Magic to me is this like long, winding diversion in the middle of a much longer path.
So let's not go to Magic yet. Let's go back. Let's go back to that last semester of college when you create the first 12 angels. I know the answer to this, but I don't believe many people do. The first angel you created was?
I think it was Syphilis, Angel of Dust.
Yeah. And why? Why was that decision made?
It was a cool name. I had this friend who was back, I think even still today on DeviantArt, they do these things called, they do these races, like open races and closed races, where people will be like, I've got a race of creatures, and they're all based off of Egyptian gods, and they all have these rules. Like they all have tails. The tails of different colors depending on like where they were born or whatever. And they do this, and sometimes it's this massive collaborative art project or just a personal project. So I had this friend who's like, I'm doing this race based off of angels. And I didn't know anything about it. And she shows me this like dictionary of angel names. It's like this thick. And I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot of these things. So I was just reading the names, and I was like, it's just like, just reading the name, like Syphilis, Angel of Dust. I was like, that's awesome. I love the idea of that. And like Zachriel, Angel of Memory. I was like, how could you not be inspired by that alone, just as a creative brief? There's like, inside this book, there's like no history, there's no deeds that they did, there's no description of what they look like. Just this name and this title was enough for me to go like, I have to draw this. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And you know, since then I'm still surprised, like people aren't just seeing these names and just making their own versions all the time. This isn't like a whole phenomenon online. Like I've been given this like amazing space to play in. And for the most part, people just leave me to it, and they just let me have fun with it every single day. And so I think it's weird. I've gotten to kind of own the angel space. Like I see more people in it now, in many cases, just directly referencing my work. Like, you know, to me, it's always been obvious. Like I read the names, I have imagery in my head. It just seems like the dumbest, most obvious piece of art somebody could make. But, you know, I've sort of respected over time that maybe it's just, I have a personal reaction to this content that other people don't have. But now that it's been out there in the wild and people have seen it, to them now it seems obvious too. Oh, of course angels look like this. Yeah. And so I see, whenever I see, you know, artistic representations of angels, you know, in popular media, I've started to see that I've had a major influence on a lot of other artists, and I've ended up on a lot of reference boards on movies and video games and stuff. At like this moment of me just like in this class in college, just seeing these things for the first time. There's like I can see this direct line from me just going like, oh, I think I get this, to like, you know, seeing it out there like in mass, like it's out there around me now. Like it's this idea that lives outside of me and beyond me. And in many cases, like there's not, unless you like know my work and know a little bit about the history, there's not even any evidence I was ever involved. It's very weird. And
it even goes a step above the art though, right? Because you said to you it was obvious, right? You saw that, you saw the names, it was so compelling. Now to a lot of other people seeing the angels, it seems obvious, but
Yeah.
you birthed that, right? You birthed that imagery. You brought them to life, and you put them, you put them in front of people, and you gave them a structure.
Yeah.
You've created sequences of angels and wrapped them with, just rich stories and a world, an entire world unto themselves.
Yeah, the different orders of angels I've made, they have sort of different rule sets for how they could look. So there's a lot of diversity within each of them, but there's like general rules that help make them distinct within the different orders. And so people who spend a lot of time, I've organized it all on my website, angelarium.net. And so people who spent a lot of time there probably can recognize, that's definitely a seraphim versus that's definitely a watcher.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also not entirely obvious just seeing a single piece in isolation. Like the work is really not about any one painting. It's really about like these entire series of paintings, these collections that have slowly unfolded over the course of, let's see, I think I started it in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow. Coming up on 20 years.
It's been a long time of me just like building and building and building on this thing.
Mm-hmm. How many angels in those now 17 years ish, how many angels have you created?
Original, like different designs, I don't know. Total number of art pieces in total, I don't remember. It's a decent amount. It's probably over 100 and less than 200.
Wow. That's a big archive of angels.
It's a lot. I started putting them in like a collectible card deck where people could just buy a poker deck of like 52 cards where it's just like all angels. Every single card is different, and there's like fiction on the back about each one.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got 2 full decks right now. They include some other artwork that's been contributed by other people who have worked on Angelarium with me, but also I'm leaving out some like the older versions from like my college years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've got enough to fill. And each of those I think is 54 cards. So I've got enough for at least 108 cards worth, like in the current collection.
That's a big deal. So take us. The first angel is the angel of dust.
Mm-hmm.
Take us through, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, whatever you feel like. Just angels along the way that held some sort of a special meaning to you, and maybe a little bit of a backstory.
The 2 big ones that keep coming up over and over again as being like important are like Azrael, the angel of death, just because he's cool. Everyone thinks the angel of death is cool. I also I had a decent idea for that one. There was like a bit of fiction where he supposedly brought 7 handfuls of dirt to form the first man. And I was like, okay, cool. What if he had 7 hands? So he just did it in one trip. My version of Azrael has 7 arms and 7 pairs of wings. He's a very, like, the key angels, they all kind of look sort of more traditional in the sense that they have like bird wings and, more traditional looking halos. And so I try to signify their importance by making them more like what people expect to see from this. So I really like Azrael as the way I imagine him as a character. But I think people just like it because it's like a cool thing that they can immediately understand. And it's got this, I've have a certain creative twist on it that allows it to be recognizable as my particular take on like, this psychopomp. And so I can always see when somebody is like copying my version of Azrael directly, or if it's somebody else's version. I feel like I have my own specific incarnation of Azrael that's just mine. And then the other one is Raziel, who's another angel name that comes up a lot in pop culture. And he's like, in my mind, like a really central part of the fiction, but also every time I illustrate him, everyone likes him. He's got giant wings made out of folded paper. And so he's the angel of mysteries, which is, again, a very popular brief.
Mm-hmm.
And he stands at like the sort of throne at the center of the universe and transcribes all the things that have happened, and in the world of the angels and also in the world of men. And he's got this massive inscrutable book full of secrets that basically explain everything in the universe. And it ends up, it's a big deal. Like like in some of the mythology, like the book of Raziel gets like cast down into the ocean, like trying to keep it out of people's hands, trying to get it. There's like occasionally little glimmers of like mythology that I can draw on here that are fun. And Raziel's another one that's got some little bit of flavor to him. And in my own books that I've written, he ends up showing up a lot. I don't know. I just like the idea of him, the idea of this sort of angel that is different from the other ones. That's just kind of inscrutable. It's hard to tell like what he's up to and why he's important, but he's definitely important. You know, there's a certain power to mystery, and I want to embody that as like boldly as I can.
So is he a bit of a historian?
No, he's like my version of him. He's deeply unhelpful. He knows. It's like we were talking about how when we had first talked, you weren't sure exactly how forthcoming you should be with the things that you wanted to tell me, because you weren't sure what our relationship was yet. And he's permanently in that state of like, you definitely get the sense that he knows what you should do, and he's telling you something that you don't know, but there's never any context for it. So it's like there's a permanent frustration in dealing with him. He's really annoying. You know, mysteries are enticing, but they're not necessarily illuminating. And so he's this figure that knows everything, and he's never lying about anything, but nothing he's saying is ever useful. And like, because you just never know, the sense is you never know what are the right questions to ask. You know, I've learned over the years that asking the right questions is often more important than anything else when it comes to like intellectual pursuits. That if you just can't ask the right questions, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have at your disposal. It's just useless. And so Raziel is this character that is permanently in a state of knowing everything, and you absolutely never know what you should be asking him. Like, and he doesn't offer it. He never offers what questions you really should be asking of the situation. And so I mean I feel like I can relate to that interaction, and so I love the idea of a character that does that. But yeah, I don't know how much of that's actually in the art itself. I've worked on these books, you know, with a writing coach and stuff. Finally coming out later this year. This isn't a plug.
That's exciting. No, plug it away. I think this is, hey, I mean, you know,
if y'all visit my website, you're going to see some targeted ads over the course of the next year, guaranteed. You can sign up for a mailing list, but I'm going to hit you up on, you're going to see me on the ad section on Facebook over and over again for the next 12 months. I guarantee it.
This is a bit of an aside, a bit of a tangent, but do you have any plans diving into the writing space, right, and providing a rich backstory to some of these angels? Do you have plans to do anything with your writing in NFTs?
There already is kind of like, there's always this section of description, and I'm like, what am I supposed to put in here? Like, so what I've historically put in the description box every time I post the angels is I add a bit of poetry. Sometimes it's written by me, sometimes it was written by a contributor, but it's always written for the piece. So I just include a little bit of poetry along with each one, and I pray that there's no typos in it, because I've been fixing the typos on these things for years as people like emailing me about them. So I hope that the ones I'm putting on the NFTs are written right. But yeah, in terms of like having like bonus content where they unlock like stories and stuff, like I've thought about that, but there's always been a mixture of writing with the art, even though I've never been very good at as a poet. And I'm not really known for my writing, nor should I be. I feel like it's important for me to add a little bit of written flavor to every single painting I release.
It comes through. It comes through. I think part of the, not just that distinctive art that I recognized immediately, but that layer deeper, that writing does come through. And maybe, you're being, I think, a bit hard on yourself and saying that you've never been recognized for your writing, but in the context of the art.
Yeah, if I was just a writer, no one would care. But the fact that there's a decent piece of art next to it, I think makes it relevant.
Yeah, it just has always felt to me, even from the first, which we're going to get to soon, the first Zodiac Angels, which were your introduction into the NFT space, at least. It's always felt to me that each angel is part of something greater. Even the series is part of something greater. And you see that in the nuances. You see that in the descriptive text, in the poetry, in all of the things that builds, kind of like the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, or whatever that cliche is.
Yeah, well, it's like I am trying to replicate the feeling I had reading the angel names in the first place. You get the sense holy shit, there's a lot of these, and also there's a lot more going on here than what is being led on.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of mystery and incomplete information that I got from just reading those names. And my goal is to just evoke that in other people. If they were going to sleep on the names, I'm going to give them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to see that there's a sense. I want the portraits of these characters to give people a sense of a larger world, but without doing too much explicit world building. You know, the writing tends to be these smaller snippets of short one-page stories without drawing like a very straight line through a fiction. You know, the poetry is definitely not trying to lay out a set of rules and regulations for this. It's like, I want the whole world to be the first Hellraiser, not all the Hellraiser sequels. You know?
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do our tangent now. I love that you pulled it back to Angelarium. Angelarium did and rightfully came first, and obviously is your life's work. But let's do the tangent now. Let's do the quick Magic the Gathering tangent.
So Magic, see the guys at Magic, they see my work and they say, your work looks like Magic the Gathering cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went to them and I told them, I said, hey, people tell me, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to impress him, the guy who's the decision maker on Magic, right? Because he's like the one who lets people into the pantheon or not, you know, because I've been a fan of Magic since 3rd edition. Mm-hmm. So I started on Magic as a little kid. And I had huge respect for it. I had done like copies of Christopher Rush's pieces, like when I was before I really started drawing, but just as like a little kid, just like being fascinated by the art. I was so happy I got to tell him that. And so like I go up to him and the only thing I can think of saying is like, you know, people tell me these look like Magic the Gathering illustrations. And he goes, yeah, I agree. I'm like, okay.
That's a good moment. So
if people ask me like, oh, how do you get work on Magic? I was like, you spend your whole life making stuff that already looks like Magic. It's so simple that you wouldn't even think that that's actually how it really works, but it's totally how it works. They don't want to look at someone and go, I think you've got potential to make what we make. It's like you're either already doing it or you're not. It's either like the thing that you do naturally or it's not. Mm-hmm. And so everyone's trying to wonder if they can steer their way into it. Like they really want to be a part of this. If only I could change myself just 20%, I might be able to do it. And it almost never works. Magic, they just hire the people who look like Magic. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I happened to be standing there in that spot. Again, it was just a matter of dumb luck that I was already producing work that was right for the brand. And so they hired me on the spot. Jeremy hired me on the spot, and I gave me some really great cards. It's my first couple of cards that I've like still continue to be notable cards to this day, which is lucky. It was the Animar Soul of Elements, which is one of the all-time most powerful commanders, like a major feature of the commander format. And then just a plain old island with an art brief that just said island. And that thing got reprinted like a whole bunch of times. I keep getting new artist proofs in the mail with the island on them. So I know that they're like, they've considering the number of copies they make of a lot of these cards. I know that painting of that island has got to be my most physically reproduced piece of work ever.
Wow.
And I would not be surprised if they've literally printed it millions of times, distributed all over the world, just because of the massive scale of production that is Magic the Gathering.
That's amazing. Now, do you have any collectible yourself of that moment in time of the island or any of the other cards you created on behalf of Magic the Gathering?
I've got some behind me there. I don't want to reach back there right now, but when I went to go do a tournament in Japan, some of the fans over there, they cut up a whole bunch of my cards and made like 3D versions of them. And I've got them in frames behind my desk. Collectibles. I have some of the last artist proofs I saved in a binder so that like the artist proofs for my important cards that I would have one copy with me so that would act as a piece of memorabilia for, you know, myself down the line. I would hate to like think back on this stuff fondly, like 30 years from now and then discover that it's like impossible to find a copy to like
Mm-hmm.
share with my grandkids or whatever. So I've got a few bits of memorabilia around of that stuff.
Yeah.
Just for myself.
Which is amazing. That brings a smile to my face. It's like eras in your history, just being able to, like you said, show your grandkids, have that around, be able to look back and reflect from time to time.
Yeah, I've got kids already, so it feels like it's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
They're already getting big. It's like crazy to think that they're going to be like going off to college and stuff like before I know it. So yeah, I'm trying to be serious about making sure that I hold on to enough of the important aspects of my my career, my artistic history, so that I don't have any regrets about it. But I'm also not a pack rat. I don't like owning stuff that much. Some of the other stuff you can see is like behind me. I've got there's an oil painting of Asbiel, Angel of Ruin, and then I've got another of Armoros, Angel of Undoing, that were done by other artists that are both original oil paintings. A couple of times where someone's made an oil painting for my series, I've just bought the original because I'm just like, I'm not going to want to regret that. Leave it to chance down the line. The Asbiel one is actually really funny because it's not funny actually. It's not funny at all. I bought it back from an estate sale because the original buyer died, and so I have a cursed painting now of like an angel holding a dead baby.
Oh my gosh.
It's an intense thing. It hangs behind my desk, but yeah, it's like a crow-headed angel holding like a dead child, and it is previously owned by a dead man. So
that went on a whole tangent I didn't expect.
Yeah, I like intense vibes. Yeah. So yeah, but I'd spoken with the original artist. The estate had reached out to him and asked if he wanted to buy it back, and they reached out to me second. And he was really thankful that the painting, which he cared about, ended up in the hands of someone who really cared about it and not just being thrown into like Goodwill or something. So I feel very honored to be able to be the steward of this thing that is meaningful to both me and him, and have it as a part of my collection. And I just think it's interesting. It's gone on this incredibly strange journey to end up here.
Yeah. And now it's in great hands, the best hands.
Yeah, I keep it close to me every day.
Yeah. So let's get back to Angelarium.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know if we've ever left Angelarium.
Well, true. We just I look at the Magic the Gathering as a bit of a detour along the road, but pulling it back here, and now we have to get to the moment where you early.
OG, I'm one of the originals.
So early that your original NFT angels were lost for a minute. I feel like. How does that decision we can call someone early who came in October of 2020.
Yeah.
But these happened in 2018.
2018. Yeah. I read all my junk mail. I get emails about all sorts of bullshit all the time, and I take meetings if people want to take meetings. I read people's proposals, and most of them I just delete without responding. I try to. I don't feel an obligation to respond to every email I get. So they're all browsed, they're all read. Many of them are left unresponded. I get a lot of anxiety about writing back to people correctly. And so rather than having a bunch of emails build up and have a terrible inbox, I found that the only way I'm able to keep up with this responsibly is to just delete emails that I do not feel comfortable having a response to. Which I think that's a professional response. But MakersPlace emailed me and they said, we have this new way of selling art. And I knew I'm always poking my head into things. I'm always learning about new stuff. So I knew a little bit about blockchain. I understood the underlying, I'd read articles about CryptoKitties before that. And so I knew what this was. And I knew that if it caught on, it would be great. But there was absolutely no proof that it was going to catch on or that it was a good idea. But the deal that they were proposing was it was a zero cost bet. They didn't require me to promote them on social media. They didn't want to take ownership of my work. They didn't want to take a lot from the sales that were made. They're like, here is a space you can put your art that is fundamentally different from all the other shitty requests that you're getting about people trying to start art communities. And, you know, we'd love it if you just gave it a try. And I was like, I throw out 95% of those invites because most of them are garbage. They either want to take something from me. They just want me to do, work for them for free. They want me to like, take my audience from my platforms that are working and put it on their shitty platform. But this was like a no obligation sort of thing. And so I was like, it's free real estate. It was like literally just a free bet. If you can take an afternoon to go and throw this stuff on this website, if it turns out to be a thing, it could be huge.
Yeah.
But it's probably not going to be a thing, but who cares? You know, take an hour and just go do it. That was it. And I've talked to so many artists since then who said like, yeah, we all got that email and we all threw it out.
But you didn't.
I didn't. I mean, I read the email. I saw the thing. I didn't have any faith in NFTs as an idea. I thought that was a great idea, but it requires other people to understand a concept that I understood, but I didn't really think other people were going to really respond to.
And so at that time, when you released the angels, and there were 12 angels, right, matched to the Zodiac.
I just finished the Zodiac cycle, so I was like, I'll just drop a whole cycle of work and I'll make them as sort of limited edition prints, 10 copies of each one.
And so what happens? So you make the 12, you have the 12 angels ready, you decide to drop them as 10 copies of each one. Boom, what happens?
Like nothing. I mean, I think I've poked in on them a couple of times soon afterwards, and I don't remember if I got any bids. But if I did, it was probably for under $100. And I thought that was pretty good because, you know, it's like, you know, prints, if I was selling limited edition prints for $75 each and doing a run of 100. And that was my core business at the time. So if I was able to sell a JPEG for $100, or I was like rolling in it, that was awesome. It was like a big deal. The fact there was only an edition of 10, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. But the fact that anyone wanted to buy them at all, I mean, it was a brand new product category. It's a free money. So nothing really happened with them for a long time. I just remember it was like, I think it was, I mean, I might be getting the timing wrong, but it was like in November of 2019. I got an email from my Coinbase saying that I had just gotten $1,000 worth of Ethereum deposited in my account. I thought somebody had fat fingered their wallet address trying to send money to somebody else. That was like the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
That like somebody must have punched in the wrong number and I had like bank error in my favor. And I saw it was from MakersPlace and I was like, that's weird. It was probably you buying a bunch of these. And then I looked in the live, I was like poking around the site and I saw the live offer section. There was like there was another $1,000 worth of offers. I was like, free money. So I just like hit the button and I just said accept on all of them. And then I think immediately, like you and a few other collectors reached out to me and they were just like, whoa, holy shit, he's using the site. Like,
yeah.
And I started getting all this advice about pricing and when to accept bids and when not to accept bids. I'm like, are you guys fucking crazy? This is free money. You want me to say no to $100 for this JPEG? And
well, let's give some shout outs real quick. So
yeah,
I wish I could claim to be the OG who unearthed the angels after a little bit of a lull period, but need to give proper credit where credit is due. Giannis, fantastic collector. And Parrott, who was then in communication with him. Now, obviously, Parrott and I are teamed up with Origin Stories. We do live streams every week together. He's a fantastic human being, as is Giannis. But that was truly the first post where I saw the angel. I had my holy shit moment. I saw Parrott chiming into that conversation that he had tracked down a couple first editions. And then I just ripped and roared. I'm like, I have to collect all the Zodiac Angel. You know, it was that personal mission. And I'm sure that's when I probably contacted you. And I think my main question, I was like, holy shit, Pete. And then my second question was like, how soon can you mint the next ones? Because they were archived. Like all the editions were not rolled out.
Yes, that was the thing is like, I had like minted, I was like expecting that I would see when stuff was sold and I would just go mint the next one.
Yeah.
But like, I went to go mint them and the network was starting to like get bogged down and shit was getting stuck, and I didn't know like about gas fees and paying to speed things up. And so I'm getting people hitting me up like, when are the next one's getting minted? And I'm just like, shouldn't this website just do this automatically? Like what is going on? I didn't understand anything about it. But I mean, maybe that's underplaying it a little. This entire time, since the beginning of this thing where I'm talking about my first successful pieces up until this moment, I have been considering the possibility that digital art is real art and is valuable and meaningful in a way that it's not getting respect for. I've had so many conversations over the years about, can you sell a digital file the same way you sell an oil painting?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody want to buy that? Is there any way that it can be done in an authentic way that's meaningful? And I've had, 20 years of that conversation. And so when this finally bubbled up and I understood the mechanisms of this marketplace, I already knew what like, as soon as I figured out just like the dumb mechanics of it, like, oh, you got to mint these pieces and you have to pay these gas fees and here's what people are buying and why and what this whole thing is. It was like that enabled finally this other conversation that had been boiling under the surface the whole time. Because I've always cared about digital art as much or more than the physical art. My entire life has been revolving around this stuff. And so all of a sudden it's just like, people are like, well, what do you do with it? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you get to own digital art for the first time in human history.
Yeah.
Like, this has been my whole life. The core that I connect to other human beings on, this thing that is so dear to my heart, but has been, I feel like, disrespected and thrown aside for my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Now we finally have a mechanism for allowing it to be treated with a level of seriousness that was never possible before.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from, oh, this is cool, I'm getting free money, to like, holy shit, this might be the next major chapter of my life, like really quickly.
Yep. It's so well put. And just adding some perspective there, in my opinion, and maybe it seems obvious to me because I'm so steeped in it now, and maybe it wasn't obvious at a certain point in time before, but what you do, right? Earlier in this conversation, talking about the 40, 50 hours and just painstakingly putting yourself into that process, that artistic process, and coming out the other side with an angelic representation, right, of something that was in your head as a name and a vision. That's art. How could that not be valued? How could that not be respected? How could that not be on par? And the whole conversation now revolves around, if someone doesn't see the value in NFTs but sees the value in artwork, they're typically saying the whole right-click save as thing, right? Why, I can just throw this image up as a wallpaper or pop it on my phone. But you can forge a painting. You can forge something in real life. You can forge a trading card. You can forge a collectible quite easily, actually, nowadays. But what is it about? It's about artistic intention, some measure of scarcity and pricing that the artist decides how are they going to birth this into the world. And then, then it needs a marketplace, right? Some means of transaction. And you're speaking about a moment where that became possible.
No, I think it's more than that. I think what matters here is what I started this conversation with was the idea that there was a part of me that had never reached other people before. Mm-hmm. And then through the art, it was reaching people. And like, that is like, I'm talking about authorship. Mm-hmm. Like that origin of the kernel of the thing. Like, we get the thing as the JPEG we see on our smartphone. It's not the thing. Mm-hmm. That's the line that connects you to the thing. Mm-hmm. That's a vehicle. It's a medium. It's a means of transportation. And so what I see the NFT as is like, it's not about like the display of the thing is just like the traveling of photons. It's not actually the thing itself. The thing itself is always been difficult to grasp because being in a digital medium, it's never instantiated itself physically. It's always been there because it's been about the desire to connect. It's been about the artistic intention. And then like the process of actually unwinding that intention into something you can share with other people. And the fact that that whole process has never actually touched the physical world, going from like a digitally created work to a digitally consumed medium, that it's passed on this upper layer of reality that's never touched the physical world, is kind of cool and special and has always been exciting. But now we have a means of actually like valuing that. And it's just like we had the tokenization process works on the same level as like the art, as the process, and then the art itself, or not the art itself, but the medium of the art. And then the tokenization operates on that same level, and we end up having this art that is like digitally native. It's being sold in its native medium.
Mm-hmm.
I went from always making sure I had a pencil sketch, so it was always grounded somewhat in reality before I scanned it in and painted it in Photoshop. After the NFT thing hit, I was like, I don't need to do that. Because like it actually becomes more pure in a way when it's just, there is no physical artifact. There's no point in like, oh, maybe you could have a screen and put it on a screen. No, we have a screen. You already saw it on a screen. You have it on your computer. You have it on your phone. It's just, you don't need a screen in your living room.
Yeah.
Like the way that digital art lives is a part of like this ever-present, you know, we're constantly consuming it. Every screen that we have, we see digital art around us, and we've just taken it for granted. And it feels like now it's finally being noticed. And we're asking ourselves, like, how do we consume it? I'm like, you've been consuming it. It's like the air. It's always been there. And you just, you know, now we're taking the mindful step of realizing that it has existed this whole time. So yeah, I don't remember where that rant started.
It's a good rant, though. It's a good rant. And imagine if we take that even a step further into where this is all going. And I think two forms of display for digital art, one in digital, one in physical, are going to vault this to the next level and have another layer, percentage of people saying, oh, I get it now. And I think one layer of that is across metaverses as we speak. I actually think maybe the biggest metaverse doesn't even exist yet. I think,
oh, definitely not. Yeah.
Right. More players are going to come into that game, and they're going to really professionalize something that is coming. I don't even know what that thing is, but the display in whatever that metaverse is, I think is going to just blow everyone away. Being able to take, you know, the Angel of Aquarius, which is my zodiac symbol, so I always go back there, but being able to take the Angel of Aquarius in this unbelievable metaverse to spend time in and display it in whatever land or home or gallery will exist in this place. That's one thing that is stuck in my mind. I think that experience will get better and better and better, and that'll be amazing. And then in the physical world, I am waiting, and I think it's around the corner, for that insane frame that...
Yeah, maybe. You know what I love, though, is like, you know, beyond like the displaying to other people, like there's a part of it that's just, you know, you own it.
Sure. Yep.
And like, if anyone were to ask, you could prove it.
Yep.
But you know you own it. And you know if you tried to bid on something and you didn't quite get it and somebody else bought it, you know you don't own it.
That is so true.
And we agree. Like there's so much of this that is simply just a contract. You know, well, what do you do with it? Well, you own it. You own it the same way you own anything. In fact, you own it in many ways more than the things you actually own. I'm certain that you own your NFTs more than you own your iPhone. There are so many things that I've owned over the years that I own in a box that I don't look at or interact with or show, that I am glad that I own, because I know that if I ever have a moment of doubt, I can look and tell myself for certain that I own it. It's a matter of identity. And so much of what I see in art purchasing is a matter of an expression of identity. People are choosing to express themselves by the things that they choose to own. And I think that in a lot of cases, when people have purchased thousands and thousands of prints from me at conventions, some of them they hang on the wall. Many of them they put in a drawer. They just want to know that they're the kind of person that owns it. and that's the thing that matters to them. And when it comes to rare objects of ownership, I think that more than it's like a Rolex. Rolexes are very useful watches, but I think that a large part of owning a Rolex is that you know that you're the kind of person that owns a Rolex, and you can communicate to other people that you're the kind of person that owns a Rolex. And the purchase of it, even just the moment of purchasing it, is meaningful. They tell you to like buy them in association with a meaningful moment in your life.
Yeah.
That like there's an abstractness to this that I feel like is almost under-respected.
So I want to do two things. I want to double down and respect that, because I think what you're saying, it makes sense. You're when you're making a decision to collect something, you are stating the kind of person you are. Yeah. Right? I agree with that. And there is that deeper level of connection and ownership there. But to push back a little bit, I think maybe underrating a little bit that Rolex factor. And you said, being able to, first you collect the Rolex or own that, and you're making a statement as to who you are. But that form of display, which is clasping it over your left or right wrist and making sure that it exists outside of your, dress shirt, is a big deal. And Rolex makes that quite easy with their clasp and their structure. And I think that while what you're saying is absolutely true, as those display mechanisms get even better, so that it's almost like the print that you're buying, comes with the perfect frame and a hanging.
It is a missing piece. It is definitely a missing piece. And I don't know if it's a physical item or a digital platform that is ultimately going to answer this question. I think about the idea of fashion a lot because it's a secret language. A lot of people don't know what a Rolex looks like. They know the brand name, but they don't. You'd think that everyone knows what a Submariner looks like, but they don't. So when you wear a Submariner, what you're not telling the world that you're the kind of person that owns a Rolex. You're telling the people who know what a Rolex looks like that you own a Rolex.
A subsection,
yeah. And it's just like, I think that the same thing is going to be true with NFTs, in the sense that if you own, there's a lot of artists that I think are more collectible than people realize, because I don't think that people have fully digested the history of digital art and understood who are necessarily the most meaningful artists and what were the most meaningful events in those spaces. And I think that when it comes to looking at another person's collection, there's going to be a certain amount of secret history that someone's going to have to really get up on in order to appreciate. Like, you're going to show someone your JPEG collection, and the average person is going to look at it and go like, I don't understand what I'm looking at. Like, I don't know what like, why is there just a white square on a white background? And you're like, oh, I got an OG pack. And they'll look at it and go like, I don't know what that means. But to anybody who knows what that means, it's going to be very, very cool. And like, this is one of the points where I'm most excited about NFTs, is because we are writing that history right now. But we're also catching up on 20 years of history. Digital art has been rolling along with its own history for so long. And yet, like most people, they haven't cared because there's never been that much money in it. And there's never been any prestige in it. So now everyone's kind of trying to figure out like, wait a minute, who are the most influential digital artists? Who has the biggest footprint in the space? Who has been an inspiration to the people who we're looking at now? And it's being unfurled day by day, it feels like, especially with more creators coming on. I'm seeing creators who I've been aware of for a very, very long time coming on to Foundation as of like yesterday and this morning. And I've getting DMs from people who are serious OGs who are just getting on Foundation like tomorrow. And I'm excited to see them be included as part of this conversation, because like, to me, they've always been part of the conversation.
It's an exciting thing. And you mentioned Foundation. I want to give a little shine to Pete Mohrbacher's current collection in the NFT space. Okay. So why don't you take us through? So we talked about 2018 MakersPlace being first there, the angels sitting for a little while, people discovering those angels. What happened after that, and where can everyone find your work?
Oh, I have been messing around since then. I was saying before the show, I've been trying to make every mistake possible on purpose, which both has been a very educational experience and also absolves me of any bad choices. I just say I meant to make that choice. And so I've started experimenting with. I want to keep my collections together on a platform. So the Zodiac collection is. I added the 13th Zodiac to it recently, and I added that on MakersPlace along with a fully collected flip book that is all 13 Zodiacs together as an NFT. So that collection is finalized, finished. It's the only one I have that is available as an NFT that is like a completely minted collection, which is exciting. I think that as a matter of people who care about collecting stuff, those have officially my most collectible thing that I have because they are complete. And then the other collection that's coming together is the emanations, which I think I've got 4 of the 12. There's 11 emanations, technically 10. Then there's this 11th one that's an empty spot. Then I have a tree of life, which represents the collection as a whole. I've got the tree, and I've got 2 of the main emanations, and then the 1 empty spot. So I've still got 8 more that are unpublished. And that is something I'm working on right now. I want to create additional work of those figures to go along with the publication of the older pieces. And I'm trying to work with people to figure out what's the best strategy for minting those. I've experimented with doing very, very large runs, like a Da'at has 100 editions set to be published that I'm doing 10 at a time. And then Keter, which is the crown at the very top of the chart, I've published as a 1 of 1. And I'm still figuring out how this is going to go because the bulk of it is still yet to be released. And so as far as like how it's going to be released is still largely unknown.
And how does Foundation play in? Because I believe you have had 1 angel thus far, right, on Foundation?
Yeah. I have a lot of Seraphim, which are the sort of most like a well-known type of order of angel. And I've only had 1 Seraphim appear on MakersPlace. And then I published 1 of them on Foundation because I just wanted to try other tools. Like I slept on applying to Super Rare and Nifty Gateway until like a week ago. So I was like, if I'm going to really own my NFTs, if I'm really going to be in charge of this the way I'm in charge of the other aspects of my business, I need to learn everything I can, which means I need to have hands-on experience with all of the stuff. And everyone I'm around is talking about Foundation. So I need to give Foundation a try. And I love Foundation. I think it's a beautiful platform. Everyone complains it's like doesn't have enough functionality. I love that it has no functionality. The older I get, the more I fall in love with minimalism. And I love the simplicity of the way the bidding goes on it. And so I'm using Foundation as a platform to create experiments that exist outside of these larger contained collections. So one-off Seraphim, anything that I do that's going to be slightly different as far as like the way I publish the NFT, whether it's with animation or sound, I'll probably be doing on Foundation rather than trying to slip it in with the MakersPlace collection. And then I also even played around with publishing non-Angelarium artwork on Foundation, which I published, I looked at, other people kind of looked at it, and then I burned them last night.
You burned them?
Yep, I burned them.
Why?
Because I knew that like what's really important to me is that people understand the context for my work. And right now, my angels were outnumbered by, fun play around experiments that I had published on there. And I was like, I feel uncomfortable dropping another angel in a context where people are going to be unsure about what they're going to be getting in the future. I want that space to be clear about what the work is and what the people can expect. And when somebody's going to be buying one of these things, they don't just want that thing to be right. They want to know that it's going to exist in a context both in the past history as well as in the future. And I think that if I set weird precedents about, I'm just going to publish random stuff, whatever, whenever on here, it makes it less easy to say yes to the really good stuff. So I was like, I like these things. I like them a lot. I like that I did it, but I'm not going to sell those.
Got it.
So
I appreciate that. It's like a clarity of story. And who knows, maybe in the future, maybe there's another platform that becomes your experimentation platform, and maybe something later.
So, I mean, I'm going to probably keep periodically releasing odd extra stuff on Foundation, and building that is like a collection of sort of seraphim pieces that I feel really strongly about, but I don't have a specific release schedule for, you know, because I really want to do regular drops on MakersPlace and have them build out these collections, these series, which contain anywhere from 12 to 20 pieces. You know, I want to have those live in one place where they can be seen and digested together. And we were talking about, okay, so where do you put these things? Do you have them in your house in frames? You know, I think they're right now, like, these things live on the website that you bought them in your collections tab. And so I want to respect the fact that that's where they're going and keep them as collected as possible on the platforms that they exist in. So yeah, expect to see me wrap up the release of the emanations over the course of the next months and have the whole series on there in its entirety, and sort of probably wrapped up with another collected flip book like I did with the Zodiac series. And then expect to see more things. I've got a release on Foundation plan for late next week. Just I've been told that it's not a drop. It's not a drop unless it's like an officially promoted thing with a platform. It's just going to be released. It's going to be minted. I'm very excited about this one. I've got an animated one that I hired somebody to help me with it. So it's going to be very much my original work, but animated. And that's going to be available. That's the first time I've done that. And it's going to be cool.
Interesting. I'm excited to see this. We'll make sure that this gets released just prior to that drop, so we can all look. Not drop. Release.
It's not a drop. It's not a drop. I was told it's I use the term drop in relation to me releasing stuff on Foundation, and I was told to say it's not a drop.
It's not a drop. Pete, you ready to play a game?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. It's called the lightning round. It's hot takes. So I'm just going to throw some words at you, throw a phrase at you, a question at you, and it's just first thing that comes to mind.
I've been told to make fewer hot takes, but I'm prepared to put my foot in my mouth. Let's do this.
All right. Not a drop, not a hot take. We'll call it something else. We'll call it some lightning. Here we go. Digital art.
Digital art is real art.
Angels.
Angels are cool.
Zodiac signs.
Everyone is every zodiac.
Favorite piece of art that is not your own, and to not exclude anybody, we can phrase it as the last NFT you literally saw that captivated you.
Oh man, that James Jean slingshot piece, I didn't have the money to keep bidding on it, but I would have spent a lot of money to buy that one. I was the first bidder ever on a James Jean NFT, so my name is officially in the history book as that.
There you go. Forever part of the record books. Concept that you have not yet tackled that you eventually want to explore.
I've had so much freedom for so long. This is actually a tough one for me. Pass.
Fair.
I'm trying to think. I get to do whatever I want. I've been able to do whatever I want for a really long time. So I try to be honest with myself about this. If I'm really going to do something, I just do it. And then I tell myself the things I don't do, I didn't really want to do in the first place.
All right, there you go.
What do I really want to do that I haven't done? A meditation retreat, not art related. Yeah.
Perfect. Catch up on some sleep, right? The angel that someone who has endless funds can go buy right now is?
Endless funds? Oh, they can buy. There's only one piece available as a one of one for sale right now, and that's Keter Emanation of the Crown. But with unlimited funds?
Unlimited funds.
DM me.
Good.
I'm a full-time NFT artist right now, and I have not only a big backlog, but the ambition to create more work in the future. We are having a different conversation now than we were a year ago.
Very,
Unlimited funds, fucking DM me, man.
Let's go. Let's flip it. Let's say someone without unlimited funds, with limited funds, but is fascinated with Pete Mohrbacher. What can they look to on Makers right now?
Oh, dot emanation of emptiness. It's 0.5 ETH. It's still pretty expensive as far as regular stuff goes, but I made that specifically so that a lot of people could afford to buy a piece of mine and have it. And those, every time I publish a new tranche of those, the prices go up. So now is the cheapest time you're going to be able to buy an NFT from me for the foreseeable future.
Love it. The next angel you will create.
I have a new Keter that is almost done and a new Da'at that's almost done. And I'm working on trying to plan out an entire cycle of archangels coming up. Ooh. People have been asking for Michael forever, and I've avoided it on purpose. And I've got sketches for Michael now. So that is a bit of news.
I love that. Dream collaboration.
Dream collaboration. Man, so many good collaborations happening right now. I dreamed of ever being able to do any collaborations because my previous structure, my business didn't really allow it. Oh God, there's so many artists I love, and I almost feel like I don't want to say some of them because I don't want to be a fanboy about them and make them feel uncomfortable. Dream collaboration. So many conversations going on right now. Oh my God, this is so hard. Please, you can just edit out the massive amount of silence on this one.
Never, Pete. Never. no edits allowed.
Collaboration.
Here, keep that in the back of your mind.
Okay, sure.
What other artist is being slept on right now and needs and deserves a bit more attention?
Oh, slept on right now? Man, I cannot believe that James Jean piece went on for only 250. What a missed opportunity by the collector base. That thing is going to be worth a lot of money. There is a guy who's about to release some stuff, and he is like a serious OG. Like he was OG when I showed up, and he is just about to start dropping works. His name's Jason Felix. This guy was like there when concept art. This guy was making concept art before we called it concept art. He's like he has like pioneered so much of like the photo bashing stuff that we see and established a style for this industry. The entire entertainment industry, and he is the most digital of digital artists, and has been for so long. And it's like this soothsayer who has pioneered stuff like way before people were ready for it. And he could not been able to figure out how to make money off of his work for a long time, aside from taking shitty freelance gigs. And I have seen the stuff that he's ready to drop, and it's so hot. I've seen him work on series he hasn't shown anybody because he has no format to publish it in for years. And he's DMing me this morning, showing me like a Dropbox folder full of gems. And I just hope that the NFT world sees what I see in this, because I think that guy should get collected in a serious way. So keep an eye out for Jason Felix on Foundation right now.
I feel like you just cut a Jason Felix commercial right there. That was intense. That was great.
Like, I'm telling you, I've got serious opinions about this shit, and like I feel like I know like who's just doing the aesthetic and who is like really legit. Like you're just looking straight into their soul when you see the work. And I don't agree with everything that's being purchased out there. I think a lot of the collectors are getting it wrong, and so I've just got to set the record straight on a positive note. Don't sleep on Jason Felix.
Jason Felix, I love it. If you could instantly acquire any other artist's skill set, matrix chip insert style, painless and immediate, to infuse with your own, who is it and why?
Skill set, man. I really don't believe in. I really don't care. I like the fact that anybody cares about my work, that I'm able to do the work the way I want to, and people actually care about it. To me, makes me just sort of. I wish for nothing to change. I've given up on the idea of having artistic ambitions. My artistic ambition is that like I continue to be able to make myself happy with the process of working, and that people keep rewarding me for it. So have inverted the whole thing. I've always been a fanboy and a great appreciator of other people's art. And I have no jealousy for the abilities of other artists, because I feel like when I see something in their work that I don't have, I'm just seeing a part of them and I'm appreciating a part of them. And that's the way I want other people to treat me, is to be happy for the things that like I'm doing in my work that are unique to me, rather than feeling like jealousy and resentment for it. So like, I don't like the idea of like that kind of comparison at all. I haven't for a long time.
Mhm.
So I just want to continue to be the best version of me as an artist. I don't really want anybody else's stuff at all. I think it's a bad wish. I think that's a monkey's paw. It's a bad monkey's paw.
It's a good response.
I don't know how many people are going to come at it that way. This is a sensitive subject for me, I feel like.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because there's two components, and I hear what you're saying with that component. I think the other component is almost stepping back from the artist and just saying, if it's like a tool to use, like having in the back of the mind, like wanting to do a sculpture or to do, something along those lines.
It's like my experience with, let me give a more specific reference for this. Like one of my favorite artists forever has been an artist named Brom. And I got to meet Brom, and Brom turns out to also be an excellent guy who I like and who seems to like me. And I figured, because I like making the kinds of imagery that Brom does, and I aspire to create the same aesthetic, I would learn so much from watching Brom paint and learning how Brom paints. And I watched it, and I went, I'm never going to fucking paint like that. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't think the way he thinks. I don't solve problems in the order he solves those problems. Mm-hmm. I don't value the same things he does as far as process is concerned. And so in that moment, I just get to release it and say, oh, I don't really want to paint like Brom at all. Mm-hmm. Brom and I just like the same movies, I guess. Like, yeah. and we share some of the same interests and some of the same inspirations. Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful all on its own, without me wanting to be more like him in any way whatsoever. We get to appreciate each other as complete individuals. And that's, to me, like a more beautiful version of the world than getting to steal part of his brain. People always like, oh, I wish I could eat your brain and steal part of it. And I'm like, I don't think that's what you want. I don't think that's what anybody wants.
Yeah.
And I truly feel like I've seen a lot of artists injure themselves by thinking that way. Mm-hmm. And that like they have foregone some of the best qualities of themselves and the most important parts of their lives by worrying about whether or not they could be more like someone else. And so, yeah, it's like it's a big deal for me that people just not think that way.
Turn the focus inward.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's already themselves, and they just need to like stop worrying about it so much.
Pete Mohrbacher, you are the angel of the NFT space.
Am I?
You are.
I would number one NFT angel artist.
Yes, indeed. By leaps and bounds. I would encourage everyone to check out. I know you have an Angel on Foundation, but to check out the absolute massive collection of content on MakersPlace. To look
there's a lot of editions that went for really cheap back in the day. I'd wonder how many people they could probably 10x their buys really easily. There's a lot of stuff on MakersPlace, really early stuff that is just kind of hanging out, waiting to enter the secondary market. I know a lot of people are hodling my work pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. For good reason.
Yeah. It's like, but it was introduced so early that I think that if somebody's interested in trying to collect my work, even though I don't have a lot of it for sale, they should look around and put some offers down.
I think that's right. Right, because there were those purchases, several handfuls that were made so long ago that you don't know where anyone's head is at a year later in this space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So wishing you all the best. This is actually an honor for me. I don't know if you recall it, but the first article that I was compelled the second article that I was compelled to just write. I was considering at the time doing a Substack and releasing regular stories. And I just had this burning desire to track you down and to learn all about the Zodiac Angels and to get this information out into people's hands. Of course, after I made sure to try to collect all the angels myself, right? It was like this competing thought. I'm like, I have to tell people. I'm like, but not too soon because I need to get all the angels. Anyway, that was a really, really fun and thrilling process for me that I hope everyone is able to go through themselves with whether it's the older angels, whether it's the ones that you continue to release. So yeah, I was compelled to do that then, and I am honored and privileged right now to sit down with you, to have a deeper conversation, and then obviously to get this out into the space.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. It's so weird to suddenly be treated as somebody with relevant and meaningful work. I'm a digital artist. Like, that's meant something different up until 2 weeks ago. I'm really happy to be here.
Hey man, we all caught up with you. You were here. You were doing your thing, and the space caught up with you. So
I've been living out in the middle of nowhere, and suddenly the circus has come to town. I don't know what to make of it.
Yes, and I think a bigger and bigger circus is on the way.
I think so too.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.